The galaxy had been quiet for so long that most species forgot what war even meant. Children learned about it in history classes as something ancient and primitive, like using stone tools or living in caves. For 1,047 years, the Galactic Concordat kept the peace across 10,000 civilized worlds. The Concordat was not a government in the way humans would understand it. No armies patrolled its borders. No weapons guarded its halls. Instead, the Concordat maintained order through economics, culture, and shame. If a world broke the rules, trade stopped. Credits froze. Other species looked at them with disappointment. For civilized people across the galaxy, that was worse than any punishment. The Zorathi Empire served as the Concordat's oldest and most respected members. They were tall, graceful beings with silver skin that shimmered under any light. Their fingers were long and delicate, perfect for the intricate work of maintaining galactic law. The Zorathi lived for centuries, some reaching 600 years old. They moved slowly, thought carefully, and prided themselves on logic and reason above all else. Admiral Kelthrix stood on the bridge of his survey ship, looking at the holographic display floating before him. His silver skin reflected the blue light of the projection. At 312 years old, he was considered middle-aged among his people. He had spent 2 centuries working his way through the Concordat's bureaucracy, and this survey mission was supposed to be routine. The planet rotating in the hologram was beautiful. Blue oceans covered most of its surface. Green and brown continents sat between them. White clouds drifted across its atmosphere. The sensors showed liquid water, breathable air, and comfortable temperatures. It was a garden world, the kind that appeared once in every 1,000 systems. Life signs? Kelthrix asked his science officer. Abundant, Admiral. The planet teems with biological diversity. Preliminary scans show millions of species. The science officer tapped his console. And there is a dominant species, bipedal tool users. They have built cities and machines. Kelthrix felt a flutter of disappointment. Garden worlds were rare enough. Garden worlds without sentient inhabitants were even rarer. If this world held a recognized species, the Concordat would protect it. The resources here would remain untouched. Show me these inhabitants, Kelthrix said. The hologram changed. It showed creatures standing on 2 legs. They had hair on their heads and smooth skin on their bodies. They wore fabric coverings and lived in structures made of stone, metal, and glass. They drove vehicles and flew aircraft. They had built enormous cities that glowed at night. Impressive for primitives, Kelthrix observed. Have they achieved space travel? Limited, Admiral. They have sent small probes to nearby planets in their system. A few have even landed on their moon, but they have no faster-than-light capability. No quantum communications, no zero-point energy. By Concordat standards, they are pre-sapient. Kelthrix felt his mood lift slightly. Pre-sapient species had no legal protections under Concordat law. They were classified the same as animals. Smart animals, perhaps, but not people. Not yet. Run a full analysis, Kelthrix ordered. Check their cultural development, social structures, and technological trajectory. The science officer worked for several hours. Kelthrix waited patiently. Patience came naturally when you expected to live another 300 years. Results are complete, Admiral. The science officer finally said. The species calls themselves humans. They number approximately 8 billion. They have divided their world into competing groups called nations. Their technology is approximately 400 years behind the minimum threshold for Concordat recognition. 400 years, Kelthrix repeated. That was nothing to a Zorathi, but enough to matter legally. And their social development? Troubling, Admiral. The science officer pulled up more data. They still practice warfare. Physical violence between their nations is common. They have weapons capable of destroying their own cities. Chemical weapons. Biological weapons. Even primitive atomic weapons. Kelthrix recoiled. Weapons were obscene. The very concept disgusted him. The Concordat had banned military technology 800 years ago, after the last holdout species finally abandoned their defense forces. Modern civilized people use sonic dampeners and neural inhibitors for crowd control. The idea of devices designed specifically to kill revolted him. They are definitely pre-sapient, Kelthrix concluded. No truly intelligent species would tolerate such barbarism. He sent his report back to Concordat Central. Then he waited. Faster-than-light communication crossed the distance in seconds, but committee meetings took time. Kelthrix spent 3 weeks in orbit around the planet the humans called Earth, watching them go about their primitive lives. He noticed something during those weeks. The humans were energetic. They moved quickly, spoke rapidly, and seemed to be in a constant hurry. Their lives were short by galactic standards, barely 80 years on average. Perhaps that explained their frantic pace. When you had so little time, you wasted none of it. The response from Concordat Central finally arrived. Kelthrix read it with growing satisfaction. The committee had reviewed Earth's resources. The planet contained rare isotopes needed for Zorathi medical treatments. These isotopes could extend Zorathi lives by decades. The committee had voted, and the decision was clear. Earth would be harvested. The humans will be relocated to a suitable reserve world, the message explained. They will be studied and uplifted over time. Perhaps in a few thousand years they will be ready for Concordat membership. This is a mercy and an opportunity for them. Kelthrix assembled his staff. We proceed with standard pacification protocols, he announced. Prepare the neural dampeners and compliance fields. Calculate population centers and prepare relocation facilities. This should take no more than a few weeks. His staff worked efficiently. They had done this before on other primitive worlds. The process was well established. First, you appeared in the sky to establish dominance. Then you broadcast compliance requirements. Finally, you activated the neural dampeners. The primitives would feel an overwhelming urge to cooperate. They would board the transport ships peacefully. Within a month, Earth would be empty and ready for resource extraction. Kelthrix had 300 ships under his command. It was considered massive overkill for a single primitive world. Some in the Concordat had questioned the expense, but Kelthrix believed in thoroughness. Better to overwhelm the humans with impossible force than risk even a minor delay. The fleet moved into position above Earth's major cities. Kelthrix had chosen 12 of them: New York, London, Beijing, Tokyo, Moscow, Mumbai, São Paulo, Mexico City, Cairo, Sydney, Lagos, and Los Angeles. These cities held the bulk of human population and political power. Control them, and you controlled the planet. On the first day of contact, Kelthrix broadcast his message in every human language. The Concordat's translation algorithms made this simple. People of Earth, his message began. I am Admiral Kelthrix of the Zorathi Empire, speaking on behalf of the Galactic Concordat. Your world has been selected for resource integration into the galactic economy. You will be relocated to a protected world where you will be cared for and educated. This is not a request. This is a mercy. You have 48 hours to prepare. Gather your personal items. Report to the designated collection points in your cities. Resistance is illogical. Cooperation will ensure your safety and comfort. The message played on every electronic device on Earth simultaneously. Televisions, computers, phones, all of them broadcast Kelthrix's face and words. Kelthrix watched the human response with clinical interest. Their leaders attempted to make contact. Radio messages flooded toward his ship in dozens of languages. The humans wanted to talk, to negotiate, to understand. They asked questions. Why us? Where will we go? Can we share the resources instead? Please give us time. Kelthrix ignored all of it. The Concordat did not negotiate with pre-sapients. Negotiations required two sapient parties. The humans would understand eventually. Once the neural dampeners activated, they would feel calm. Their anxiety would fade. They would cooperate. The 48 hours passed. Kelthrix noted that very few humans had reported to the collection points. Some governments had evacuated their capitals. Others had mobilized their militaries. Still others had sent people into underground shelters. They are responding with instinct rather than logic, Kelthrix observed to his staff. As expected from primitives, activate the dampening fields. Across Earth, 300 ships hummed with power. Invisible waves of energy washed over the planet's surface. The neural dampeners were designed to suppress aggressive impulses and enhance cooperation. They had worked perfectly on every primitive species the Concordat had ever encountered. Kelthrix watched the population monitors. In the cities below, humans collapsed by the millions. The dampeners were working. He allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. This would be over soon. Then something unexpected happened. In pockets across the planet, humans began to move again. Not all of them, but enough. Military bases that had been shielded by mountains or deep underground came alive with activity. Aircraft launched from hidden airfields. Soldiers who had been unconscious minutes before woke up and returned to their posts. Status report, Kelthrix demanded. Neural dampeners are functioning at full capacity, Admiral. His science officer reported, confusion in his voice. But we are detecting resistance. Significant resistance. How is that possible? Unknown, Admiral. Perhaps their neural structure is more diverse than we anticipated. Perhaps some of them have natural resistance. Or perhaps, the science officer paused. Perhaps their shorter lifespans make them more resistant to long-term compliance technology. Kelthrix watched a small aircraft streak toward his ships. They were primitive things, burning chemical fuel and flying on wings. They could never hurt a Concordate vessel. His ships had shields designed to deflect asteroids. The first missile hit his flagship's shield and detonated. The ship rocked. Alarms blared. Kelthrix grabbed his console for support. "Report," he shouted. "Shield integrity at 76%, Admiral. They are using high-explosive kinetic weapons." Kinetic weapons? Kelthrix could barely process the words. Kinetic weapons were ancient, uncivilized. They relied on explosive force and flying metal. Modern shields were designed to deflect energy weapons and space debris, not concentrated explosive power. More missiles struck his ship. The bridge lights flickered. Kelthrix felt something he had not experienced in 200 years. Fear. "Return fire," he ordered. "With what, Admiral?" His weapons officer asked helplessly. "We have no weapons. We have sonic dampeners and crowd control fields. We are a pacification force, not a military vessel." More ships reported damage. One of the survey vessels over Moscow took a direct hit from something the humans called a surface-to-air missile and lost altitude. It crashed into the countryside outside the city. All 70 crew members died on impact. Kelthrix stared at the casualty report in horror. Zarathi didn't die from violence. They lived for centuries and passed away peacefully in their sleep. The concept of 70 people dying in an instant was incomprehensible. "Retreat to high orbit," Kelthrix ordered. "Get out of range of their primitive weapons." The fleet pulled back. From the safety of high orbit, Kelthrix sent an emergency message to Concordate Central. His hand shook as he composed it. "Initial pacification has failed," he wrote. "The humans possess violent technology and the will to use it. They have destroyed one vessel and damaged 47 others. Request immediate reinforcement with historical deterrent systems. Classification level, Category 5 anomaly." A Category 5 anomaly was the highest threat level in Concordate classification. It meant a situation completely outside normal parameters. Kelthrix had never used that classification before. He had never imagined he would need to. The response from Concordate Central took 6 hours. Kelthrix spent that time watching Earth's military mobilize. The humans were preparing for a longer fight. They moved weapons and people. They fortified positions. They acted like this was something they understood. When the response arrived, it contained authorization for historical deterrent systems. 5,000 additional ships would arrive within 2 weeks. These ships would be equipped with energy weapons pulled from Concordate museums. Weapons that had not been used in 800 years. Weapons that the Concordate had sworn never to use again. Kelthrix read the authorization and felt a cold weight settle in his chest. The Concordate was preparing for war. Real war. Something that had not happened in 1,000 years. And the humans, these primitive, violent, short-lived humans, had forced them to break their oldest vow. Kelthrix looked at Earth spinning below his ship. The planet looked so peaceful from orbit, so beautiful. He wondered if it would still look beautiful after 5,000 warships arrived. He wondered if anything would. The 2 weeks of waiting felt like an eternity to Admiral Kelthrix. He kept his fleet in high orbit, watching Earth with growing unease. The humans did not wait passively. Every day brought new surprises. They fortified their cities with anti-aircraft weapons. They dug tunnels beneath their streets. They moved their factories underground and began producing more weapons. Kelthrix watched in fascination and horror as the entire human species seemed to transform into a military force. "They have declared something called total war," his intelligence officer reported. "Every human nation has ceased their internal conflicts. They have united against us." United? Kelthrix had never seen that in his surveys. The humans spent most of their time fighting each other. How is that possible? "They have a saying, Admiral. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. We have become the common enemy that unites them." Kelthrix did not like that. Unity meant coordination. Coordination meant they would be more effective. He had counted on human divisions to make pacification easier. The reinforcement fleet arrived exactly on schedule. 5,000 ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. They were an impressive sight. enough to darken the sky over any planet. Kelthrix felt a measure of relief. Surely the humans would see this massive force and surrender. Commander Xyloth led the reinforcement fleet. She was older than Kelthrix by a century and had a reputation for thorough efficiency. Her silver skin bore the faint lines of age, and her eyes held the wisdom of 400 years. "Admiral Kelthrix," she said when they connected via hologram, "I have reviewed your reports. Tell me about these humans." "They are violent beyond any species I have encountered," Kelthrix said. "They have weapons designed only to kill. They refuse to see reason." "Then we will teach them reason," Xyloth replied calmly. "My ships carry weapons from the Concordat archives, energy weapons capable of leveling cities, kinetic bombardment systems, atmospheric scrubbers. We will not enjoy using them, but we will use them if we must." Together, the combined fleet of over 5,000 ships approached Earth. Xyloth broadcast a new message to the humans. "This is your final warning," her message said. "You have attacked Concordat vessels. This is unacceptable. Stand down immediately. Comply with relocation protocols. If you refuse, we will demonstrate the consequences. You cannot win. You are a single primitive world facing the might of 10,000 civilized systems." The human response came 30 minutes later. It was not from a government. It was not from a military leader. It was from someone who called himself Secretary General of the United Nations Emergency Council. "This is Earth," the human said. His face appeared on every screen in the Zorathi fleet. He was old for a human, maybe 70 years. He had white hair and tired eyes, but his voice was steady. "You came to our world uninvited. You declared us property. You tried to steal our home. We did not start this fight, but we will finish it. Every man, woman, and child on this planet is prepared to resist you. We would rather die free than live as your pets. This is your only warning. Leave now, or learn what 8 billion angry humans can do." Xyloth turned to Kelthrix with confusion. Do they not understand their situation? One primitive world cannot fight the galaxy. "I think," Kelthrix said slowly, "they do not care." Xyloth gave the order to demonstrate force. 10 ships moved into low orbit and targeted an unpopulated area in the Australian outback. Energy weapons charged up and fired. The beams carved through the atmosphere and struck the ground. Rock vaporized. The energy released was equivalent to a small nuclear explosion. "Let that be a lesson," Xyloth broadcast. "Next time we target your cities." The human response was immediate. Missiles launched from silos across the planet. Not just a few, thousands of them. They streaked upward on trails of fire, their chemical engines burning bright against the night sky. "Impossible," Xyloth whispered. "No primitive species should have that many missiles." The missiles reached the fleet. Most were shot down by point defense systems, but dozens got through. They detonated against shields and hulls. The Zorathi ships rocked and shuddered. Warning alarms filled every bridge. Then human aircraft arrived. Not the primitive jets from the first engagement. These were faster, more advanced. They launched from hidden airfields and from ships at sea. They fired missiles and bullets and rockets. They flew with suicidal aggression, targeting ship engines and command centers. "They are targeting our vulnerable points," Kelthrix's tactical officer shouted over the noise. "They know where to hit us. How?" Kelthrix demanded. "They must have studied the ship we lost. They learned our weaknesses." The battle raged for 6 hours. The Zorathi fleet's superior technology gave them an advantage, but the humans fought with a ferocity that shocked every observer. They did not retreat. They did not surrender. When their aircraft were destroyed, they launched more. When those were gone, they fired from the ground. When the battle finally ended, the Zorathi fleet had lost 83 ships. 3,000 crew members were dead. The humans had suffered worse. 5 major cities had been damaged by orbital bombardment, and millions of civilians were dead or wounded, but the humans did not break. "This makes no sense," Xyloth said, staring at the casualty reports. "They lost this battle decisively. Why do they continue?" Kelthrix thought about the short human lifespan. 80 years. These creatures lived and died in what felt like a moment to a Zorathi. Perhaps that made them see things differently. When your time was short, maybe you spent it on things that mattered. Things like freedom. Things like home. "I think," Kelthrix said quietly, "we have made a terrible mistake." The war continued for months. The Zorathi fleet, despite its overwhelming size, could not break human resistance. Every city they attacked fought back. Every population center they bombed became a rallying cry for human determination. The humans learned quickly. Within 3 months, they had reverse-engineered captured Zorathi shield technology and installed it on their military bases. Within 6 months, they had figured out how to jam Zorathi communications. Their scientists worked around the clock dissecting every piece of alien technology they captured. Kelthrix watched in amazement as human innovation accelerated. These people who had never left their own star system were now building ships with faster-than-light capability. Crude ships, yes. Ugly ships powered by primitive reactors and armed with nuclear weapons. But ships that could reach the stars. The Zorathi had taken 4,000 years to develop faster-than-light travel. The humans did it in 6 months. They are learning from us, Kelthrix told Commander Xyloth. Everything we use against them, they study and adapt. We are teaching them how to be a threat to the entire galaxy. Then we must end this quickly, Xyloth replied. She looked tired. Zorathi were not built for war. The constant stress and violence were breaking her mentally. She had lost 200 years of peaceful existence in 6 months of horror. Prepare for a final assault. We will break their military capability completely. The assault began at dawn. 2,000 ships attacked simultaneously, targeting military bases, government centers, and industrial facilities across the planet. Energy weapons carved through cities. Kinetic projectiles fell from orbit like rain. The destruction was immense. But in the chaos of the attack, something else happened. A human team had infiltrated the wreckage of a crashed Zorathi command ship. They had studied it for months, learning its systems. And during the assault, when all Zorathi eyes were focused on the attack, the humans struck. A boarding shuttle, built from salvaged Zorathi technology, approached Commander Xyloth's flagship. It transmitted Zorathi identification codes stolen from captured computers. The flagship's defensive systems recognized it as friendly. The shuttle docked. 50 human soldiers poured out of it. They wore armor and carried weapons designed to fight in space. They moved through the ship's corridors with practiced efficiency, killing or capturing every Zorathi they encountered. The Zorathi crew panicked. They had no weapons. They had no training for this. Some tried to flee. Others simply froze in terror. The idea of armed enemies inside their own ship was so alien to them that they could not process it. The humans reached the bridge in 20 minutes. Commander Xyloth stared at them in horror as they burst through the door. One of them, a woman with short dark hair and cold eyes, pointed a weapon at her. "Surrender your ship," the human said. "Now!" Xyloth surrendered. She had no choice. Her crew was unarmed and untrained. Half of them were in shock from witnessing violence firsthand. The humans took control of the flagship and, with it, access to the entire Zorathi Fleet Command network. The humans did not use the network to issue commands. Instead, they copied everything. Fleet positions, ship specifications, communication protocols, faster-than-light navigation data, supply routes, even the location of Zorathi Prime, the heart of the Zorathi Empire. Then they transmitted all of it back to Earth. Kelthrix learned about the capture from an emergency broadcast. He felt his world crumbling. The humans now had every secret of Zorathi technology. They had faster-than-light capability. They had weapons. And they had something the Zorathi had lost a millennium ago: the will to use them. 3 weeks later, the first human fleet launched from Earth. 27 ships, all built in secret and underground facilities. They were ugly things, welded together from scavenged materials and human industrial equipment. But they worked. They had faster-than-light drives copied from Zorathi designs. They had shields. They had weapons, thousands of nuclear missiles, railguns firing metal slugs at a fraction of light speed, and even some captured Zorathi energy weapons. The fleet's destination was not a secret. The humans broadcast it openly. "We are coming to Zorathi Prime," the fleet commander announced. "You came to our home. Now we come to yours." Kelthrix tried to warn his homeworld. He sent messages explaining the danger, begging them to prepare defenses. But Zorathi Prime had not fought a war in over 1,000 years. They had no warships, no weapons, no training. The entire concept of defending against an attack was foreign to them. "They cannot seriously intend to attack us," the Zorathi High Council replied to Kelthrix's warnings. "We are their superiors. They will see reason once they arrive and witness our civilization." "They will not see reason," Kelthrix replied desperately. They will see targets. Please evacuate the population. Prepare shelters. Do something. But the High Council did nothing. They could not imagine humans actually attacking. It was unthinkable. Kelthrix made a decision. He took his ship and left the fleet above Earth. He engaged his faster-than-light drive and raced toward Zorathi Prime. Perhaps if he arrived first, he could convince them. Perhaps he could save his people. He arrived 3 days before the human fleet. Zorathi Prime was beautiful as always. 27 worlds in a single star system, each one a masterpiece of engineering. Billions of Zorathi lived in peace and comfort. Art, music, and philosophy flourished. It was everything civilization should be. Kelthrix landed on the capital world and went directly to the High Council chambers. He showed them everything. Videos of human attacks, casualty reports, technical analysis of human weapons, the captured flagship, the approaching human fleet. The High Council listened politely. Then they thanked him for his report and explained that they would send a diplomatic envoy to meet the human fleet. Surely this was all a misunderstanding that could be resolved through dialogue. Kelthrix wanted to scream. Instead, he returned to his ship and waited. The human fleet arrived exactly when predicted. 27 ships against Zorathi Prime's complete lack of defenses. The Zorathi sent their diplomatic envoy as planned, a single civilian ship carrying ambassadors and gifts. The humans destroyed it without warning. Then they attacked. The battle was not really a battle. It was a massacre. Human ships targeted orbital facilities first, space stations, satellites, defense platforms that had no weapons. Then they moved to industrial centers, factories, refineries, power generation facilities. They used nuclear weapons liberally, not caring about radiation or fallout. The Zorathi tried to fight back with their civilian ships. Cargo haulers and passenger liners flew up to intercept the humans. They had no weapons and no shields. The humans destroyed them by the hundreds. For 3 days, the human fleet systematically destroyed Zorathi Prime's infrastructure. They did not target residential areas at first, but industrial facilities and habitats were often in the same locations. Billions of Zorathi died as their worlds burned. Kelthrix watched from his ship, unable to help, unable to look away. He had started this. He had recommended Earth for resource extraction. He had invaded a world without understanding what he was facing. On the 3rd day, the human fleet broadcast a message to the entire galactic concordat. Every civilized world in the galaxy received it. "This is Earth," the message said. "You came to our world and called us primitives. You tried to steal our home and enslave our people. You thought we would submit because you were advanced and we were not. You were wrong. We are humanity. We fought our way up from caves and jungles. We survived ice ages and plagues. We split the atom and walked on our moon. And now we walk among the stars. You awakened something in us, something your peaceful galaxy forgot existed. This is war, real war, Totaba. And if you do not leave us alone, we will bring it to every world in your concordat. We did not start this, but we will end it." The message ended. The human fleet engaged their faster-than-light drives and vanished. Kelthrix looked at the broken system around him. Zorathi Prime would never recover. 3 billion of his people were dead. The survivors would carry the trauma forever, and the humans were just getting started. The news of Zorathi Prime's devastation spread across the galaxy like a shockwave. 10,000 civilized worlds learned that humanity had destroyed the heart of the oldest empire in the concordat. The species that had maintained peace for a millennium had been brought to its knees in 3 days. Panic followed. The Galactic Concordat Council convened an emergency session on Pax Stellaris, the capital world. Representatives from thousands of species gathered in the Grand Chamber. For the first time in 800 years, they discussed military strategy. "We must respond with overwhelming force," declared Ambassador Threen of the Kelvari. The Kelvari were insectoid beings known for their logic and efficiency. Calculate the optimal fleet size. Deploy it to Earth. Eliminate the human threat completely. Eliminate? Ambassador Zelos of the Manuvian Collective looked horrified. The Manuvians were peaceful aquatic beings who had never raised a weapon in their entire history. "You mean kill them? All of them? That is genocide." "We cannot—" "They attacked Zorathi Prime," Threen interrupted. "They killed billions of civilians. They have demonstrated that they are a threat to civilized space. We have no choice." The debate raged for hours. Some species wanted peace. Others wanted revenge. Many wanted simply to hide and hope the humans would leave them alone. In the end, they voted to mobilize a defense force. Every species would contribute ships. The Concordat would assemble the largest fleet in galactic history and use it to contain humanity. They would blockade Earth, prevent humans from spreading, and eventually negotiate from a position of strength. It was a logical plan. It would have worked against any rational species, but humanity was not rational, not anymore. While the Concordat debated and planned, human fleets struck across the galaxy. Small groups of ships, never more than 30 at a time, appeared at random worlds. They targeted infrastructure just as they had at Zarathi Prime. Power plants, factories, orbital facilities. Anything that kept civilization running. The humans did not stay to fight. They struck quickly and left before defenses could respond. Then they jumped to another system and did it again. The attack spread chaos. Concordat species had grown soft over a millennium of peace. Their economies depended on complex trade networks and just-in-time delivery systems. When human raiders destroyed a few key facilities, entire sectors fell into crisis. Food shipments stopped. Medical supplies ran out. Power grids failed. Millions died not from violence but from the collapse of the systems that kept them alive. Kelthrix watched it all unfold from his ship, now orbiting a refugee station near what had been Zarathi Prime. He had aged visibly in the past months. His silver skin had dulled. His movements were slow and tired. He had not slept properly since the invasion of Earth. A communication request arrived. When Kelthrix accepted it, he found himself looking at a human face. The human was male, perhaps 50 years old, with graying hair and hard eyes. "Admiral Kelthrix," the human said, "my name is General Marcus Wade. I command the human forces in this sector. What do you want?" Kelthrix asked tiredly. "To talk. Just talk." Wade's expression softened slightly. "I read your initial reports about Earth. You recommended our world for resource extraction. You led the invasion. This all started with you." "I know," Kelthrix said. The guilt had been eating at him for months. "I did not understand. I thought you were primitives. I thought we were helping you." "Helping us?" Wade laughed bitterly. "You were going to take our world and stick us in a zoo, a protected reserve. You would have been cared for." "We did not want to be cared for. We wanted to be left alone," Wade sighed. "But that is not why I called. I called to tell you something important. This war, it is not about revenge anymore." "Then what is it about?" "Survival. Teaching you a lesson." Wade leaned forward. "Your Concordat ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years. You decided who was civilized and who was not. You decided who had rights and who could be relocated like animals. You made rules that worked for you and enforced them on everyone else. And when we resisted, you tried to burn our cities from orbit. We were trying to restore order." Kelthrix protested weakly. "You were trying to maintain control. There is a difference." Wade's eyes hardened again. "Now we are showing you what happens when you push too hard. When you threaten someone's home. When you forget that primitive does not mean weak. Where does it end?" Kelthrix asked. "How many worlds must burn? How many billions must die? That depends on you," Wade replied. "On all of you." When the Concordat learns to respect strength, when you learn that peace is not the same as submission, when you understand that we are not your property, then it ends. The communication cut off. Kelthrix sat in silence, thinking about Wade's words. 18 months after the invasion of Earth, human forces controlled or influenced 4,000 worlds. Not through military occupation mostly. Humans could not occupy 4,000 planets with their limited numbers. Instead, they controlled through fear and infrastructure destruction. A world that cooperated with humans kept its factories and power plants intact. A world that resisted found its orbital facilities destroyed and its economy crippled. The choice was simple, and most worlds chose survival. The Concordat's defense fleet finally assembled near Pax Stellaris. 10,000 warships from 100 species. They were an impressive sight, the largest military force the galaxy had ever seen. But they were also a joke. Most of the ships were converted cargo haulers with makeshift weapons. The crews had no training. They had studied war from ancient history files, but none of them had ever fought. Many species could barely stand the idea of violence. Human scouts watched the fleet assemble and transmitted detailed reports back to Earth. They cataloged every weakness, every design flaw, every hesitation in the enemy crews. When the Concordat fleet finally moved to attack human-controlled space, humanity was ready. The battle happened in a system called Kepler's Hope. a human colony established on a world the Concordat had abandoned centuries ago. The Concordat fleet arrived expecting to overwhelm the human defenders with superior numbers. Instead, they found a trap. Human ships emerged from every direction. They had been hiding in the system for weeks, waiting behind planets and asteroids, their reactors cold and silent. When the Concordat fleet arrived, the humans activated their engines and attacked from all sides. The battle was chaos. Concordat ships designed for cargo and passenger service broke formation immediately. Captains who had never fought did not know how to respond to simultaneous attacks from multiple directions. Some tried to flee, others froze. A few tried to fight, but their hastily installed weapons were no match for human military technology. The humans used tactics the Concordat could not counter. They rammed ships, sacrificing damaged vessels to destroy larger targets. They launched nuclear weapons from close range, accepting the blast radius that would damage their own ships. They boarded enemy vessels and captured them, adding those ships to their own fleet. After 6 hours, the Concordat fleet broke. 3,000 ships fled in disarray. 2,000 more had been destroyed or captured. The remaining 5,000 surrendered. Human forces did not accept the surrender immediately. They waited, letting the Concordat ships sit powered down and helpless for 3 days, letting fear build, letting the lesson sink in. Then General Wade broadcast to the captured fleet. "You came here to destroy us," he said, "to eliminate the human threat. Instead, we destroyed you. Again, I want you to think about that. Think about what happens every time you fight us. Think about whether this war is worth it." He paused, then continued. "We are going to let you go, all of you. Return to your worlds. Tell your leaders what happened here. Tell them that humanity will not stop. We cannot stop. You taught us that the galaxy only respects force, so we will give you force until you learn a different lesson." The Concordat ships were released. They limped back to their home systems, carrying stories of human ferocity and military superiority. But something else happened after the Battle of Kepler's Hope. Something humanity did not expect. The Concordat collapsed, without military force to maintain order, without economic stability, without trust in the central government. The 10,000-year-old alliance fell apart. Species withdrew to their home systems. Trade networks failed. Communication between worlds became sporadic. The galaxy descended into chaos, and humans kept fighting. Not all humans supported the continued warfare. On Earth and the colonies, debates raged about what humanity should do with its newfound power. Peace movements sprang up, arguing that revenge had gone far enough. Military commanders argued for complete galactic domination. "We cannot stop now," argued Admiral Sarah Chen, commander of the 3rd Human Fleet. She spoke to the Emergency Earth Council via hologram from her flagship. "If we stop, they will regroup. They will come for us again. We must maintain pressure until they have no choice but to accept us as equals." "Equals through genocide?" demanded Councilmember Rodriguez. He represented the peace faction on Earth. "We have killed trillions. Entire species are on the brink of extinction. We have become the monsters we accuse them of being." "They invaded us," Chen shot back. "They tried to steal our world. Every death, every destroyed city, that is their fault, not ours." "At some point," Rodriguez replied quietly, "we have to decide who we want to be. Survivors? Conquerors? Murderers? We crossed the line from self-defense to atrocity months ago." The debate went nowhere. Earth's government had fractured. Different nations backed different factions. Colonial worlds operated independently. Human military commanders in distant systems made their own decisions about targets and strategies. 5 years after the invasion of Earth, humanity was winning the war but losing itself. Admiral Kelthrix, now working with a refugee relief organization, saw the devastation firsthand. He traveled to worlds that humans had attacked. He saw the orphaned children, the destroyed cities, the species on the edge of extinction. On one world, he met a young Zorathi female named Sela. She was barely 40 years old, a child by Zorathi standards. She had survived the destruction of Zorathi Prime by hiding in a shelter. Now she worked in a hospital, caring for the wounded and traumatized. "Do you hate them?" Kelthrix asked her one day. "The humans?" Sela thought about the question. "I did, at first. They killed my parents, my friends. They destroyed everything I knew." She paused. "But then I learned about Earth, about what we did to them. About how we started this. We thought we were helping, Kelthrick said, though the excuse sounded hollow even to him now. No, Sella replied gently. We thought they did not matter. There is a difference. We thought their lives and their world were less important than our convenience. We were wrong. Kelthrix felt something shift inside him. Sella was right. The Concordat had not invaded Earth out of cruelty. They had done it out of indifference. They had not seen humans as people. That was somehow worse than hatred. What do we do now? Kelthrix asked. We learn, Sella said. We change, and we hope it is not too late. Far across the galaxy, General Wade stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at a tactical display. Human fleets controlled major trade routes. Resistance was minimal. Thousands of worlds had submitted to human authority or fled into isolation. But Wade felt no triumph, only exhaustion. Sir, his intelligence officer reported, we have intercepted communications from Pax Stellaris. The remaining Concordat leaders are requesting negotiations. Negotiations, Wade repeated. After all this, they want to talk. What should we tell them, sir? Wade thought about the millions of humans who had died when the Zarathi invaded Earth. He thought about the billions of aliens his fleets had killed in response. He thought about the galaxy burning around them. Tell them, Wade said slowly, that we will listen. But only if they come to Earth. Only if they see what they did to us. Only if they stand in the ruins of our cities and face what they started. The officer nodded and sent the message. The galaxy had slept in peace for a millennium. Now it lay awake in the nightmare humanity had become, and somewhere in the darkness the faintest possibility of dawn was beginning to break. The delegation from the remnants of the Galactic Concordat arrived at Earth 7 months after General Wade's invitation. They came in a single ship, unarmed and broadcasting peaceful intentions on every frequency. The ship was old and battered, showing the scars of the war that had consumed the galaxy. Admiral Kelthrix led the delegation. He had volunteered for this mission, believing he owed it to both sides. With him came representatives from 40 species, all that remained of the once mighty Concordat. Most of the original 10,000 civilized worlds had either been destroyed, isolated themselves completely, or fallen under human influence. As their ship approached Earth, Kelthrix looked out at the planet that had changed everything. From orbit, Earth looked wounded. He could see the scars where cities had been bombed from space. Radioactive craters glowed faintly in thermal imaging. But he also saw life. Humans were rebuilding. Lights twinkled in the darkness. Ships moved between the planet and its moon. They are resilient, Sella said quietly beside him. She had insisted on joining the delegation despite her youth. We destroyed their world and they refused to die. The ship landed at what had once been called Geneva. The city had been hit hard during the war, but humans had cleared the rubble and built new structures among the ruins. The delegation emerged from their ship to find a full honor guard waiting, human soldiers in military uniform, standing at attention with weapons at their sides. General Wade stood at the front of the honor guard. He was 5 years older than when Kelthrix had last seen him on a video call. The gray in his hair had spread, and new lines marked his face. The war had aged him. Admiral Kelthrix, Wade said formally. Welcome to Earth, or what's left of it. General Wade, Kelthrix replied. Thank you for allowing us to come. Come, Wade said. Let me show you what the Concordat's peace cost us. Wade led the delegation through the ruins of Geneva. He showed them buildings that had been vaporized by energy weapons. He showed them mass graves containing hundreds of thousands of humans who had died in the first attacks. He showed them hospitals overflowing with the wounded and the traumatized. 3 billion humans died in the first year of your invasion, Wade explained as they walked. 3 billion. That is more than the total population of most species in your Concordat. We lost entire cities, entire regions, knowledge and culture that can never be recovered. Kelthrix felt sick. He had read the casualty reports, but seeing the reality was different. The delegation from the Concordat walked in shocked silence. Many of them had never seen death on this scale. Many of them had never seen death at all before the war. Wade brought them to a memorial. It was a simple thing, a wall of black stone with names carved into it. Millions and millions of names. We remember them all, Wade said quietly. Every person who died because you decided our world was worth less than your convenience. Every child who will never grow up. Every dream that was ended. We did not understand, Kelthrick said, his voice breaking. You thought you were superior, Wade interrupted. You thought might made right. You thought your long lives and advanced technology gave you the authority to decide our fate. He turned to face the delegation. You were wrong, and we made you pay for that mistake. We made the entire galaxy pay, and now? Asked Ambassador Threen of the Kelvari. The insectoid diplomat had been one of the strongest advocates for destroying humanity completely. Now he looked diminished, his carapace dull with age and stress. What happens now? Do you continue until the galaxy is nothing but rubble? Wade looked at him for a long moment. That is what we are here to decide. The negotiations took place in a bunker deep beneath the ruins of Geneva. The room was plain and functional, with a simple table and chairs. No luxury, no comfort, just a space for hard conversations. Let me explain our situation, Wade began. Human fleets control 7,000 worlds directly or indirectly. We have military superiority across most of the galaxy. No species can fight us effectively. If we wanted to, we could continue this war until nothing was left. He paused, letting that sink in. But we do not want that. Not anymore. Not all of us anyway. Wade looked tired. We are fighting among ourselves now. Some humans believe we should conquer everything, create an empire, rule the galaxy the way you ruled it, but with force instead of economics. Others believe we should retreat to Earth and isolate ourselves completely. And some of us believe there might be a third option. What option? Sela asked. A real peace. Not the peace you had before. That false peace where you decided who mattered and who did not. A peace where everyone has the right to defend themselves. Where strength is acknowledged, not hidden. Where species are equals, not because you grant them recognition, but because they demand it. Ambassador Zelos of the Manuvian Collective spoke up. The aquatic being's voice was sad. We cannot return to what we were. The Concordat is broken. Most species have withdrawn to their homeworlds. Trust is gone. The networks that connected us are destroyed. Good, Wade said bluntly. Your old system was broken. It only worked because you were lucky. For 1,000 years no one challenged you. No one said no. You mistook luck for wisdom and weakness for cooperation. Then what do you propose? Kelthrix asked. Wade pulled out a data tablet and slid it across the table. The Terran Accords, a new framework for galactic civilization. Every species maintains its own defense forces. Every species has the right to weapons and military technology. War is acknowledged as a possibility, not hidden away like a shameful secret. You want us to militarize? Threen sounded horrified. To return to the Dark Ages before the Concordat? No, I want you to be ready. To be strong enough that no one invades you the way you invaded us. And in return, humanity agrees to limits. We demilitarize our offensive fleets. We keep defensive forces only. We submit to inspections and oversight. Why would you give up your advantage? Zelos asked suspiciously. Because we are dying, Wade said bluntly. Not physically, spiritually, morally. We have become a species of soldiers and killers. Our children are growing up knowing only war. If we do not stop soon, we will lose what makes us human. We will become the monsters you feared we were. The room fell silent. Kelthrix studied Wade's face and saw genuine pain there. The general was not lying. Humanity was winning the war but losing itself in the process. There is more, Wade continued. The Accords propose a joint galactic defense force. Ships and soldiers from every species trained to respond to real threats. Not a police force like the Concordat had. A military force, capable of fighting wars, capable of defending civilization. And who commands this force? Threen demanded. A council. Representatives from every major species. Including humans. Including Zorathi. Including everyone who survived this nightmare. Wade leaned forward. We are not asking for your surrender. We are asking for partnership. Real partnership, based on mutual respect and shared strength. The negotiations continued for weeks. The delegation debated every detail of the Terran Accords. Some species wanted more restrictions on human military power. Humans wanted guarantees that the Concordat would never return to its old ways. Slowly, painfully, an agreement took shape. But not everyone supported it. On Earth and the human colonies, extremist factions rejected the Accords as betrayal. They had fought and bled and sacrificed. They had lost billions of people. And now their leaders wanted to give up their advantage? Admiral Sarah Chen commanded the largest faction of extremists. She controlled over 30% of humanity's military forces, and she made her position clear. "We did not fight this war to negotiate," she broadcast from her flagship. "We fought to win, to make sure no alien species ever threatens us again. These accords are surrender disguised as peace." General Wade tried to reason with her. "Sarah, we have to stop. We have to build something better." "We will build something better," Chen replied. "A human empire, a galaxy where no one dares to threaten us because they know we will burn their worlds to ash. That is the only lesson they understand." The split became a schism. Human military forces divided into factions, those supporting the accords, those rejecting them, and those who simply wanted to go home and stop fighting. The crisis came to a head when Chen's faction announced plans to attack Pax Stellaris and execute the remaining Concordat leadership. It would be a final demonstration of human dominance, sending a message that humanity ruled the galaxy now. Wade could not allow it. But to stop Chen, he would have to fight other humans. The species that had united against the galaxy would now turn their weapons on each other. The Battle of Sol began in Earth's orbit. Chen's fleet jumped in from distant systems, over 500 ships, all crewed by humans who believed they were protecting humanity's future. Wade's forces numbered fewer than 300 ships, but they held the high ground over Earth itself. For the first time in 7 years of war, humans fought humans. The battle was brutal. Both sides knew each other's tactics. Both sides used the same weapons and strategies. Neither side held back. They had spent years learning how to kill aliens. Now they used that knowledge on each other. Kelthrix watched from the surface, standing in the ruins of Geneva with Sella and the other delegates. They could see the flashes of weapons fire in orbit, ships burning, debris falling through the atmosphere like shooting stars. "They are destroying themselves," Sella whispered, "just like we destroyed ourselves in the Great Burning." "Perhaps that is necessary," Kelthrix replied. "Perhaps every species must face this choice. Power or peace, domination or cooperation. Perhaps humans must make the same mistakes we made before they can move past them." The battle raged for 3 days. Both fleets battered each other mercilessly. Chen's forces had superior numbers. Wade's forces had better position and the determination of fighting to protect their homeworld. On the 3rd day, as Chen's flagship prepared a final assault, something unexpected happened. Ships from both fleets stopped firing. Not all of them, but enough to matter. Crews mutinied. Captains refused orders. Soldiers who had fought aliens for years finally broke when asked to kill other humans. The war had pushed them to their limit, and they could not cross this final line. Chen's fleet fell apart. Ships surrendered or fled. Chen herself was captured when her own crew arrested her and turned her over to Wade. The Battle of Sol ended not with victory, but with exhaustion. Both sides had lost hundreds of ships and tens of thousands of lives. Earth, the planet that had started this entire war, had been scarred yet again by orbital combat. Wade stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the damage reports. His fleet was devastated. His command was fractured. He had won the battle, but at a cost that made victory meaningless. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "we are receiving a message from Admiral Kelthrix. He says the Concordat delegation is ready to sign the Terran Accords. He says it is time to end this, all of it." Wade looked at Earth spinning below his ship. The planet that humanity had fought so hard to protect. The planet they had just scarred fighting each other. "Yes," Wade said quietly. "It is time." The Terran Accords were signed in the ruins of Geneva, in the same bunker where negotiations had taken place. Representatives from 60 species put their marks on the document, creating a new framework for galactic civilization. It was not the peace the Concordat had maintained. It was harsher, more honest, more prepared for conflict. But it was real. It acknowledged reality instead of hiding from it. And for the first time in 7 years, the guns fell silent. The galaxy had been broken. Humanity had broken it, shattered the 1,000-year peace into fragments. But from those fragments, something new was being built. Something that might actually last. 10 years after the invasion of Earth, the galaxy looked nothing like it had before. The old Concordat was gone, replaced by something new and uncertain. The Galactic Union had risen from the ashes, but it was a different kind of organization entirely. General Marcus Wade, now considerably older and grayer, stood at the window of his office on Earth. He looked out at the rebuilt city of Geneva. The ruins had been cleared away and replaced with new buildings. They were not as grand as what had been destroyed, but they were functional and filled with life. A chime at his door announced a visitor. "Come in," Wade called. Admiral Victoria Osei entered. She was younger than Wade, only 45, but she had fought through most of the war. She commanded the 3rd Human Fleet during the worst of the fighting and had become one of the strongest advocates for the Terran Accords. "General," she said, nodding respectfully, "the first class of joint cadets has completed basic training. The ceremony is this afternoon." Wade smiled slightly. "How did they do?" "Better than expected. Humans teaching aliens how to fight. Aliens teaching humans how to think long-term. It is strange, but it works." Osei sat down without waiting for an invitation. They had known each other too long for formality. "Admiral Kelthrick sent a message. He wanted you to know that Zorathi Prime is rebuilding. They have established a memorial for the dead. He invited you to the dedication ceremony." Wade felt a complex mix of emotions. "I killed billions of his people. And he invaded your world," Osei replied. "But you are both trying to build something better now." "That matters," Wade nodded slowly. "I will go. It is the least I can do." Osei studied him. "You carry too much guilt, Marcus. You did what you had to do. You stopped the extremists. You built the peace." "I built a peace on mountains of corpses," Wade replied quietly. "Human and alien. Every night I see their faces. Every decision I made, every order I gave, they all led to death. How do I make peace with that?" "You do not," Osei said gently. "You carry it. You let it remind you why the peace matters, and you make sure the next generation does not have to make the same choices." Across the galaxy, on what remained of Zorathi Prime, Admiral Kelthrix walked through the memorial gardens. The gardens had been built on the site of a city that had been vaporized during the human attack. Now trees grew where buildings had stood. Flowers bloomed where people had died. Sella walked beside him. She was 50 years old now. No longer a child, but not yet considered truly adult by Zorathi standards. She had spent the past 10 years working with refugees, helping rebuild shattered communities and teaching the next generation about the cost of their ancestors' mistakes. "Do you think we learned?" she asked Kelthrix. "Do you think the galaxy truly changed, or did we just get tired of fighting?" "Both, perhaps," Kelthrix replied. He paused by a memorial stone bearing thousands of names. "We were arrogant. We believed our peace was permanent because we could not imagine anything else. We had forgotten that peace requires constant effort. The humans taught us that," Sella said. "They did, with blood and fire." Kelthrix looked at the sky. "But they also taught us something else. That species we dismiss as primitive might have wisdom we lack, that short lives can be lived with great meaning, that fighting for what you believe in is not always wrong." A young Zorathi approached them nervously. He was barely 20 years old, one of the first generation born after the war. "Excuse me, Admiral Kelthrix. I am supposed to report to the Joint Defense Academy next month. I am nervous." "Why nervous?" Kelthrix asked kindly. "I will be training with humans, the species that destroyed our worlds. How am I supposed to trust them?" Kelthrix considered the question carefully. "You do not have to trust them immediately. Trust is earned. But you can learn from them, and they can learn from you. That is the point. We are building something new together, something that acknowledges our differences instead of pretending they do not exist." The young Zorathi nodded, though he still looked uncertain. After he left, Sella smiled at Kelthrix. "You are good at this, mentoring the young. You should do more of it." "Perhaps," Kelthrix said. "I have 300 years left if I am lucky. I should use them for something meaningful." The Joint Defense Academy was located on a neutral world called Haven. It had been chosen specifically because no major species had a strong claim to it. The Academy trained soldiers and officers from dozens of species, teaching them to work together and defend civilization. The current class included humans, Zorathi, Kelvari, Manuvians, and 30 other species. They trained together, ate together, and learned together. It was not always easy. Cultural differences caused conflicts. Some species could not understand others. Some carried grudges from the war. But slowly they learned. Lieutenant Sarah Kim was one of the human instructors. She was 28 years old, too young to have fought in the war itself. She had grown up during the conflict, but her actual combat experience came from peacekeeping operations afterward. "All right, listen up," she called to her mixed species squad during a training exercise. "This scenario is a hostage situation. Armed extremists have taken civilians captive in a space station. Your job is to rescue the hostages without getting them killed. Species note: 3 of the hostages are Manuvians who cannot survive outside water for more than 30 minutes. You have 20 minutes to plan, then we run the simulation." The squad gathered in a circle. Humans, Zorathi, and Kelvari worked together, combining their different strengths and perspectives. The humans provided tactical aggression. The Zorathi provided long-term strategic thinking. The Kelvari provided logical analysis. They completed the exercise successfully, though not perfectly. After the debriefing, one of the Zorathi cadets approached Lieutenant Kim. "Instructor," he said, "may I ask a personal question?" "Go ahead. You teach us to fight, to kill if necessary, but you also teach restraint and rules of engagement. How do you balance these things? How do you know when violence is justified?" Kim thought about the question. It was a good one. You never fully know. You make the best decision you can with the information you have. You try to minimize harm. You remember that every enemy was somebody's child, somebody's friend, and you accept that sometimes there are no good choices, only less bad ones. That sounds difficult. It is. That is why we train so hard. So when the moment comes, you are ready to make the hard choice. Kim smiled slightly. Your people kept the peace for 1,000 years by avoiding violence completely. My people survived by being ready for it. Maybe together we can find a balance. 50 years after the invasion of Earth, the galaxy had settled into a new normal. The Galactic Union was fully established with representatives from over 5,000 worlds. It was smaller than the old Concordat had been at its peak, but it was more honest. More real. Wars still happened, small conflicts between species over resources or territory, but they were limited, contained. The Joint Defense Forces intervened when conflicts threatened to spread, using force when necessary but preferring diplomacy. Humanity had become the Union's military backbone, just as some had predicted. But humans had also become students of peace, learning from species that had perfected it over millennia. Human philosophers studied Zorathi ethics. Human artists collaborated with Manuvian musicians. Human engineers worked alongside Kelvari scientists. Earth itself had been transformed. The scars of war remained, deliberately preserved as memorials. But life had returned. Forests grew in former combat zones. Cities thrived, and most remarkably, aliens now lived on Earth alongside humans. The first Zorathi immigrant had arrived 30 years after the war. Then came Kelvari Manuvians and others. Some came for work. Some came to study. Some came simply because Earth fascinated them, this world that had changed the galaxy. Admiral Victoria Osi, now 75 years old and retired from active service, stood at the memorial in Geneva. She came here every year on the anniversary of the invasion. She remembered the day the Zorathi ships appeared in Earth's sky. She had been a young lieutenant then, terrified and angry. "Still visiting the dead?" a familiar voice asked. Osi turned to see Admiral Kelthrix. He was incredibly old now, nearly 500 years. His silver skin had faded to almost white. He moved slowly, but his mind was still sharp. "Every year," Osi replied. "I owe them that much. What brings you to Earth? Curiosity, nostalgia, guilt." Kelthrix smiled sadly. "I am dying, Victoria. Finally. Perhaps another year, perhaps 2. I wanted to see this place one more time before I go." "I am sorry," Osi said quietly. "Do not be. I have lived a long life. Too long, perhaps. I saw my people's greatest mistake and its consequences. I helped build something better afterward. That is enough." Kelthrix looked at the memorial wall. "Do you think it was worth it? All the death and suffering? Could we have found another way?" Osi thought about the question. She had asked it herself 1,000 times over the years. "I do not know. Maybe if your people had listened when we first said no, maybe if we had been less violent in our response, maybe if 100 things had been different," she paused. "But we cannot change the past. We can only honor it and learn from it." "Wise words from a young species," Kelthrix said with gentle humor. "We learned from an old one." They stood together in silence, looking at the names of the dead. Human names, Zorathi names, names from 100 other species caught up in the war. Each one represented a life cut short, a future stolen, a family broken. The galaxy slept for a millennium, Kelthrix finally said. We slept in a peace that was not real. You woke us up, violently, painfully, with fire and blood, but you woke us up. And now we stand awake together, Osei replied. Prepared for war, committed to peace, no longer hiding from reality. Do you think it will last? Kelthrix asked. This new peace? I do not know. Nothing lasts forever, but I think it has a better chance than the old peace did, because it is built on truth instead of comfortable lies. Kelthrix nodded. I hope you are right. I hope the deaths meant something. 100 years after the invasion, Earth had become a symbol of the new galaxy. It was no longer just the human homeworld. It had become a meeting place, a center of learning, and a reminder of what could happen when species failed to respect each other. The youngest generation knew the war only from history classes and the stories of grandparents. They grew up in a galaxy where humans and aliens worked together as equals, where military service was respected but not glorified, where peace was valued but not assumed. A human girl named Maya, 12 years old, sat in a classroom on Earth. Her teacher was a Zorathi named Keltra, one of Sela's students from decades ago. Keltra was teaching a history lesson about the war. The invasion of Earth happened because two species failed to understand each other, Keltra explained. My people thought your people were primitives who could be relocated like animals. Your people showed us that we were wrong, but they showed us through violence. Both sides made terrible mistakes. Millions died because of those mistakes. A Kelvari student raised a chitinous limb. Teacher, was the war necessary? Could it have been avoided? That is the question historians still debate, Keltra replied.
Some say yes.
Some say no. I believe the answer is complicated. The war could have been avoided if my people had respected your right to your own world. But once it started, perhaps it had to burn until both sides learned their lessons. What lessons? Maya asked. That strength without wisdom is dangerous. That peace without preparedness is fragile. That different species can coexist, but only if they respect each other's differences and rights. Keltra paused. The galaxy slept in peace for 1,000 years. Then humanity woke us up. It was painful. It was bloody. But now we are awake, and that is better than sleeping through a comfortable lie. After class, Maya walked home through Geneva. The city was beautiful, a blend of human and alien architecture. She passed Zorathi gardens and Kelvari sculpture. She saw humans and aliens shopping together, working together, living together. She paused at the memorial wall. Her great-grandfather's name was carved there. He had died in the first Zorathi attack. She had never met him, but she knew his story. She knew what he had fought for. Thank you, she whispered to the name on the wall. We will not let it happen again. That night, across the galaxy on 1,000 worlds, similar scenes played out. Young people learning about the war, veterans remembering the fallen, families building lives in the peace that had been bought with so much blood. The galaxy would never be the same. The 1,000-year sleep was over. The comfortable lies were gone. In their place was something harder but more real. A peace built not on forgetting but on remembering, not on weakness but on mutual strength, not on ignoring differences but on respecting them. Admiral Victoria Osei, now 90 years old and writing her memoirs, composed the final chapter. She thought about everything she had seen. The war, the devastation, the reconstruction, the new galaxy that had risen from the ashes. She wrote, Humanity broke the galaxy's peace. We shattered 1,000 years of order with 7 years of violence. Many call us barbarians for this, monsters, destroyers of civilization. Perhaps they are right. But we were also victims who fought for survival. And in fighting for ourselves, we forced the galaxy to face truths it had been avoiding for too long. The old peace was built on comfortable assumptions. That war could be forgotten. That strength did not matter. That civilized species could determine which lives had value and which did not. Those assumptions were wrong, and we proved it. The new peace is built on harder truths. That strength matters. That every species has the right to defend itself. That peace requires constant effort and vigilance. These truths are uncomfortable. But they are real. Did the cost justify the change? I do not know. I cannot weigh billions of lives against abstract principles. But I know this, the galaxy sleeps no more. We stand awake together, humans and aliens, prepared for whatever comes. ready to defend what we have built, committed to never again mistaking comfort for wisdom. The Empire invaded Earth and humanity's rage broke a millennium of peace. From that breaking, we built something new, something harder, something honest, something that might actually last. And that, perhaps, is enough. Osei finished writing and looked out her window at Earth. The planet had come so far. Humanity had come so far. The galaxy had come so far. The stars shone above, no longer threatening, no longer peacefully ignorant. Simply infinite with possibility. The long sleep was over. The awakening had been painful. But now, finally, the galaxy stood ready to face whatever came next. Together.